Välkommen till det här avsnittet av Underpodden. Där jag, Jonas Liveröd, ska tala med konstnären Hartmut Stockter som bor på en husbåt i Köpenhamn. Om tvivel, om problemet med att vara romantiker, om att ha gyttja i venerna och om att åldras som konstnär. För det. Och mycket välkomna. Take it from the top. 43 seconds in. I'm here in my not so cozy studio with Hartmut Stockter. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hartmut Stockter is a 47-year-old visionary maker of things. His official title is artist, I believe.
In a way, yes.
How would you describe yourself?
I'm a guy with mud in his veins. I come from the Wadden Sea, and I've always been cycling around the countryside and trying to find consolation in the outside wilderness. But there was no wilderness. It was all artificial landscape in a way.
And do you think you're still there?
Yeah.
Looking for that wilderness?
Yes.
This is really interesting. I started out wanting to become a fisherman and an archaeologist. I think I am the mix of the two.
Ethnology maybe appealed to me, but then I thought it was too difficult. You needed to know French and Latin and everything. So I thought, okay, either I become a postman or I become an artist.
Yes, sometimes you can become both, actually. Many of our colleagues are. Let's see, get back. We were just trying out this little thing with Nick Cave and his... I went to see his show yesterday at Sorte Diamant. And this kind of brought together the idea for our little experiment here. I found the Nick Cave experience to be overwhelming and not in a positive sense.
Really?
Yes. I mean, I am a big fan of like showing everything and not having to deselect anything. And I did enjoy certain parts of it, but it was like cave-ish Disneyland. There is something about musicians who are into art who want to make art. It becomes very much scenography.
Bob Dylan.
Yeah, or for instance, like one big fan of Peter Greenaway or Brian Eno. People who tried to, David Bowie, tried to make art. Didn't work out very well.
Many musicians are trained artists, so.
That is true. And Nick Cave did go to art school. But the good thing about it was that I could see he was very generous with his influences. Mm-hmm. And for anyone who was interested in somebody else's world, it was great. It was just not presented very well. Oh. But I thought this is interesting. I like to know a bit more about your influences. First, please, Hartmut, describe what you do.
I started out in the first things I would call art, they were tools to explore the landscape with a humorous twist. I made a subterranean periscope that you could carry around with you on a day trip, and then drill into the soil and then look into the soil where it was dark. You had light, but there's basically nothing to see. So from that on, it developed into different kinds of funny instruments, like butterfly scales, poetic sort of, a butterfly that is like a picture of lightness, of lightweight, that I would weigh with this brass scale contraption.
Would you describe it as poetic?
Well,
I mean, this is one word, it's very hard to say.
Yeah.
I've started using it again.
It's almost like romantic, what you said before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is poetic in a very conventional sense. It's also like my listening to bird steps, bird houses, bird feeding shelters, where you had a stethoscope connected to the platform of the bird feeding shelter, and the bird would come and fly to get the food, and then they would make noises, fine noises that you could listen to with the stethoscope. It has
real interview with you at some stage.
Yes.
That'd be great with better sound.
Yeah.
But actually, do you find that people experience your things or understand them the way you would want them to understand them?
No. Like when you said a romantic, then I felt very misunderstood. And I hear that a few times, because for me, romantic is, very, I hope I find the right word, indulgent in the things that the person senses, sort of exaggerated expression of what you feel and sense. And I don't feel I'm like that. Maybe I'm making a caricature of, these early scientists who would maybe combine, what do you call it, belletristic writing with science.
Yeah, I have to admit that was a very, very sore toe I stepped on there. And I have to,
Never call me romantic again.
and it was okay. It was meant as a bit of a sense of humor. It was obviously hit the wrong spot.
And also, in Germany, the romantic movement led to this nationalism.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be connected to that, although maybe back then it was more innocent in the beginning than what it became, the monster it became,
Yeah, okay, fully understand that. We have officially now put this behind us. But that misunderstanding, this is very good. At the ripe old age of 46, which is my age right now, I feel, in a certain sense, more misunderstood than ever.
And becoming worse.
I believe it is for me, or maybe I'm just starting to realize more and more how misunderstood I am. That part of the reason why I'm trying to make a fucking encyclopedia at the moment. Mm-hmm. Do you find that this, we made a lot of jokes about your work throughout the years, but I would have a feeling I have a fairly good
you
understanding.
Make fun of me all the time.
Yeah, I do, and this is not very nice. It's a bit of a bully.
I remember when you said the worst cloud painter of all times or something.
No, I never said that.
Yes, but it was right.
Okay, this has become a bit
I've gotten better now.
Yeah, I think actually we're both getting better, but both also as well. I don't know. Do you find? Let's get back to the misunderstanding, because there's several things to talk about. In which way are people not understand? Because, well, what do they not understand?
For example, if we take the landscape pursuit, which is a contraption that enables you to carry your favorite landscape, or like a pastoral, idyllic landscape, to start with, around with you. You have this tube that's connected to your back, like a rucksack, and then it goes over your head, and then it's lets this painting in a gold frame, hang in front of your face everywhere you go. A bit like a donkey with a carrot. That's a donkey that runs after a carrot. And it's often interpreted like you can take this beautiful landscape around with you, but really like in the ugly, brutalist surroundings that you go around in every day. You know, you take this beautiful landscape with you, but that's not all there is to it. It can be used like that, but it's more like making fun of our own longing for the romantic landscape that we always seem to run after, although there's so many other types of landscape to indulge in.
Yeah, this is something I think that people misunderstand with you. They find too much of that it's toys and it's jokes.
Yeah.
And I would say there's longing and desperation in there as well. Mm-hmm. And there's one of your fellow countrymen, Werner Herzog, once said when he was in the Amazon, the birds are not singing, they're screaming in pain. Yes. I can totally go with you on this one. Of course, now you made a show for children, but also for grown-ups.
Yes.
But and this, of course, has a play aspect to it because it's supposed to have a play aspect to it. But in general, I find that you're misunderstood in this way, that people find it too much like quirky jokes or funny inventions. There's much more.
Or take the treadmill, which it's like a big treadmill, man-sized treadmill you can walk in, and you walk on this meadow that is painted on the inside of the treadmill. It just makes people try to go as fast as they can, but I don't know if they realize the sadness of it. You know, that it's monotonous. You just go in the same landscape all the time, and it's sort of a picture of this boredom in landscape that you can feel, or also this, you know, this desperate attempt to create your own landscape you can walk in when you don't have the chance to be outside and walk outside. So that's a desperation for you.
Yeah. It's but we both in some way. I often get compared to people who are very, on a superficial level, use the same kinds of colors or at certain dimensions in the extremes of shoes or hair or whatever, and I get so depressed is a big word, but frustrated because people see obviously, maybe it's vanity to a certain extent, because I want to be understood as this goddamn thinking artist that I am. But
you're just the colorful guy.
Yeah, I just turn into something that people just I mean, that's also one of the reasons for making a dictionary, for no, please have a look here. There are things, I'm generous about it. I'm willing to offer you a lot of stuff here, and then I think we share this kind of misunderstanding. That's also why we end up getting to do kids stuff.
Yeah,
we're good with the kids, but it's not really where it's at. All right, so that was a misunderstanding. But can I now get we've gone way over time, but I'm just going to let this go for. I'm interested in background. What have you looked at? What are you still looking at that you looked at when you were 16? Is there anything?
Oh yes. I'm still very interested in landscape painting of all kinds, and that was always there. But in the beginning, I didn't paint myself, so I was more interested in sculpture, really. And I still am, but landscape sculpture is rare. Does exist, but so what really was my takeoff into contemporary art, or post-war art, or which I didn't understand in the beginning. That was land art, like Robert Smithson's Spiral Jetty. I remember the moment I saw a book in the library with Spiral Jetty on it, and it said click, and because I have been sort of I had been doing wooden sculpture, sort of like God, nature gods things in wood, carved in wood, which is a bit pathetic, and I needed to get away from that. But then in the spiral jetty, I saw the same power, but stripped of all the unnecessary bullshit around it,
And do you? Okay, I know my moment with spiral jetty as well. I think it was just a little bit later, but it was one of those. But do you still find because I think that Smithson made a lot of actually better things than the spiral jetty in the end.
Okay.
But it was like really, the jetty was
the iconic piece.
Yeah, it was that icon piece, definitely. But that's the one you carry with you until now.
Yeah. And maybe I'm too primitive to understand some of the other pieces where he just took rocks from some place and combined them with mirrors and all that. I didn't really get that, but it's many of the other.
What about the one with when he poured?
Asphalt pour. Or yes,
because that was like when I started understanding art. I mean, really getting art. Yeah. Then that one was like a motherfucker for me.
Yes, I like that one too.
Yeah,
and also this reclaiming industrial sites in various ways without erasing all the traces of industrial activity, but just commenting them with art somehow. And that's also very awesome. And all this, look at the tortured landscape that he had, and to use that in art, I find that still inspiring.
I don't know this. Is this your words or his? The tortured landscape?
This is my words.
It's fucking amazing.
I'm not sure. Maybe I read it because I just recently took out this book again with the writings by Robert Smithson, and I read a little bit just yesterday. It keeps on coming up, and I like to work. For me, it works better to work in the city with things that I find there than, for example, in Norway, where I was for a year. That was a bit difficult because there was so much landscape around already, and I felt like, why make art when there's such a beautiful landscape around?
It makes complete sense. If you ever went to Lofoten, there's no point in really making anything else.
Yeah. So, but here in the city, I love, the birds that still survive in the city, and I make plastic birds and use chewing gum and stuff to make bird sculptures. And there I return to the figurative, but still under the influence of Robert Smithson, who loved these, landscapes that weren't so pretty.
Yeah. Do you now Smithson is long dead, but you're not, luckily. Do you still believe in what you do? Do you still have faith in what you do?
Yeah, sometimes more, sometimes less. Some stuff, you're making this so people can hang it on the wall, which is okay for me because then it's not so pricey and it's for everyone, which I like.
Now you're referring to yesterday.
For example, yeah. But then it's maybe not the greatest art you can make that way. Sometimes you just have to come up in a certain scale or something. And then I still believe in that more, but yeah, and some ideas are better than others, of course.
Because I mix I have more doubt now than I ever had in my entire life. Although I, to a certain point, think that I might be actually better now than I ever was in a broader scale. If you look at the whole body of work, but I notice also that there are more things. The things that matter, they really matter. But then there's a lot of things that, for instance, in my case, public art has become an area which permanent public pieces don't really matter. It's
Never
not like they're
believed in
important.
that since I've just read a little bit in this book by Walter Graskamp. Or maybe I just read the introduction or something. But that sort of changed my whole perception of public art. The phenomenon of drop sculptures. We call them drop sculptures because they're like as if they had dropped down from the sky and they have no relation to their surroundings whatsoever.
Sorry, drop sculptures and tortured landscape. You're like a fucking Mark Twain of art right now.
It's not my invention.
If you could make an interview with yourself, you've done a lot of interviews. We've both done a lot of interviews, I think.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, there's always been like a local journalist who's asked questions about the show you made in Nästved or Horsens or something, I'm sure. Rarely do they ask the questions. You get asked, it's fun to talk about your stuff sometimes, but if you could ask, what do people forget to ask you?
Oh, that's a difficult question. Most of all, they don't write my answers down correctly. Or they interpret them wrong. But I don't know.
But that has to be a more of a lack in your sense of communication.
Ooh. I think I'll have to think about that a little bit.
Yeah, but this is for our next upcoming, the proper interview. This one, I think this could be. Did you ever read the one I did in Permanent Daylight? You maybe you did.
But it's long time ago.
Yeah.
I have to read it again.
The thing is, anyway, it was one of those things I really wanted to do. Was I wrote an interview with myself, and I wrote it very intensely in two. I decided to make it in 2 sessions, and I made it. I wrote it. I knew a few things I wanted to ask myself, but I wrote it so quickly in order not to adjust things too much, to make it feel like there was an actual association flow, like a conversation with myself. And it was interesting because there were several things I wanted to ask myself that didn't show up in conversation. I ended up in completely different territory.
Well, yes. I mean, Hartmut, do you consider yourself a romantic artist? That's one I would like to answer. Or what do you think is nature? What is nature, Hartmut? What is landscape? Do you love landscape?
This is great. Would you say here now that your landscape is, because I saw the landscape as a part of your world, it's become a bigger part, but now you return to it again and again. Like I thought that this was like the whole that you sort of immerse in. I don't know if you could call it use nature, because that's a bit unfair. Because
used nature?
No, that you use nature. I mean, it's. Do you use? I mean, is there a projection in using the birds or the landscape or the? I mean, it's sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes I use like allegories or something.
I project. I mean, I use a lot of stuff, and use always sounds like, or manipulation sounds like something really negative. But sometimes it's just you have it to tell something else. Is your stories actually on on nature and our relation to it, or in some sort of a semi-curious, scientific, melancholic, esoteric way? Or is it... what is your view on nature?
Yeah, first of all, I don't know what it means. This word can mean so many things, and there's so much meaning put into it. Like, so I have to start with. I have a problem with the word. I'm not the only person. So, like, also Robert Smithson, he also considered sort of man part of nature. So.
Well, I was actually including you in the whole picture of nature. I mean, you can actually you continuously use yourself in your work as a part of the
I have this alter ego, der Ausflügler, the day tripper, who's doing things. And
the day tripper, yes.
Indeed.
I was a bit envious of you when you were using that name. I thought it was brilliant.
Well, it's better than... it's better than, the runner or whatever. I don't know. I can't think of a worse word now. But no, the day tripper is sort of friendly, and there's no strain to it, to the stroll through the landscape. It's not like you're trying to reach the South Pole before somebody else, or it's not like you're climbing a mountain and, half reach the top half dead or something. It's very light. The day tripper is, enjoying himself or herself.
Is it? Yesterday I was feeling very restless in the evening, but also tired. I wasn't quite sure what to do with myself, so I ended up looking a little bit into the Louisiana Channel. I saw a part of a Paul McCarthy interview. Mm-hmm. The guy's still alive, and he's a talker. He looks like he's 155 years old. But he spoke of using personas or alter egos. It was a way to liberate what you want to talk about. It was much easier for him to release himself through the persona that he was using this way, because if he was just Paul McCarthy, he'd be too anxious and stuck.
Yeah.
And do you find this with the day tripper as well?
Yeah. I mean, the day tripper can even be a little romantic, but in a slightly ironical way or something. And the day tripper is not me, and so I don't feel like I'm trying to put myself in front. It's not about me, it's about the day tripper. I don't feel it's like this egomaniac project. And also, there are many more sides to me than to the day tripper. It's more of it's a simpler character.
Is it a bit like a method, really, like you could use a computer or a chainsaw or...
I wonder. Well, it's still the day tripper is still flesh and blood in a way. And it could be you. You could be the day tripper.
Yeah, I wish I was, yeah.
Yeah, you could... you can borrow the instruments and go for a walk on the next... construction site, what do you call this? Empty lot.
Yeah, where do you keep all your pieces? The ones that didn't get sold, which I suspect is the majority.
Yes, unfortunately, but they different places. I try to spread them out to as many places as I can, because I don't have so much space myself. So if somebody asks, can we keep it for a while? Then I say, yes. So two pieces are out in Jutland somewhere, and some are in my container, and I have a 6 square meter storage room.
I find this also a truly amazing thing, that you're so much out there in you work in a container. And but your whole entire Övre is about the great outdoors, or it's not about it, but it includes the great outdoors.
Yeah, I couldn't sit inside.
Or the ungreat outdoors, maybe.
Yeah, precisely, and that's where I have the container. There are birds around, and I try to have as many plants as I can, but the paradox thing is also that I'm sort of chained to this container, and because I always work making things, and I feel bad about going outside for a day trip. Although the day tripper, that's why the day tripper is also about longing, because I don't have time to be the day tripper myself, because I'm writing about the day tripper or making the things that the day tripper is going to use. So it's a very paradox situation.
Yeah. I'd also like to ask about your choice of materials. We had a talk about this in the past. You got very offended by me asking about your brass. But how do you like? Okay, there was a beginning when you started using certain materials.
In the beginning, I was very strict, and everything was gray, and I wouldn't allow myself to use brass or copper. It wasn't meant to be nostalgic in a way, or it wasn't about some pastime science or whatever. But I got weak, and now I use both. Sometimes I think now it's getting too much. Now I have to tune it down a little bit and start using aluminum and stainless steel again.
Okay, but how about this? So recently I've been considering, I made all these things, many things. I'm a thing maker, like you are a thing maker. I'm a thinker and a thing maker. Mm-hmm. But it bothers me that I'm using so much materials and abusing so much. So there are now two options which I'm considering. One is trying to stop being a thing maker and being a talker. Like this is the whole lecture thingamajiggy coming on and so forth. Maybe certain dimensions that I don't know if I can manage to stop making stuff. I don't know if I even want to, but I'm considering it. And the second thought is to use only materials that are already secondhand.
Yes. Now, I try that as much
but
as
it's
I can.
hard, no?
Yes, and especially if you make bigger things.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible.
And also that might lower the quality of the work in the end. I mean...
Yes. At least if it's outdoor work, it's almost impossible. You can find as much large wood as you need for, proper hut or whatever you're devising.
How do you motivate this? Do you motivate it even?
Well, for one sculpture, I used wood that was actually sorted out and to be burned. So I thought that's almost like recycled, but it was still good quality wood. So half of the sculpture was made of that, and the other half was actually pretty bad treated wood that I wouldn't want to work with again. But I'm getting smarter. Yeah,
it's just a tough question. All right, back. Are you seriously going into aluminium?
Well, if I use aluminium, it's also from the scrapyard. Yeah. And I don't like the material really. It's not so healthy, you hear all the time. But that goes for brass as well and stuff,
By the way, returning to the subject of toys and misinterpretation, I find that most public art looks like big toys these days. What is going wrong with the public art? Would you say, in a general sense? Why is it? Is it because of the production line that there is. Now we're flaking out into a whole different territory, but it's.
Yeah, I mean the problem. It's not my idea. I think a lot of this is coming from Walter Graskamper, but the thing is that what he writes is like the contemporary or modern art. They have sort of defined themselves as an elite, and they're trying to make things that are not immediately understandable, or they can be very hermetic, closed, and for the people who don't know anything about art, they have other things they know a lot about. It's not like they're stupid, but they're not into art, and they see these things and they think, what is this? People, what do they want? What is this? And it's like something that's imposed on them without them wanting it, maybe. And
I also get a bit embarrassed because people make such a big fuss when you make a public art piece. There always has to be newspaper articles, radio. There has to be mayors. There has to be little children's choirs, and you're like, it's just a sculpture, okay? Yeah. It's not a big deal, not that big a deal,
Yes.
And I've been looking around Copenhagen as I've been here now for a while now, and how long have I been here? I've been here a month at least, maybe a bit more.
In Copenhagen, there's no real public art program, or there's no
but
public art really
there's a lot of
Copenhagen.
There's a lot of what I would call classic or modern classic, and I think it works really well. I was standing yesterday on one of the bridges and looking on some sort of a bronze sculpture, and I thought, like, well, this fits really into the landscape. Could this fit into the town of Säffle? If Säffle, instead of like having like two contemporary art pieces, would it work for them to have one of these instead? What does the public space really need? I'm not sure if my stuff is what it needs. I keep on being disappointed about.
That's a question I ask. What does this space need?
Yeah.
When I try to find out what to make, then it's what does this space need?
And do you find that you are successful?
Not sure. Because I know all these problems that inevitably will evolve when you make a public sculpture, but I still make them because I can't say no, and it's a bit money, and you feel great when you completed it, but then here comes the shitstorm.
But do you have to compromise a lot? I find that most I'm still, I would say that I'm getting better at making public art. But it takes a lot of practice to be able to navigate the sea of restrictions and so forth.
I feel like I'm a weak person, like I'm a pleaser. I try to please, but funny enough, I don't always succeed.
Hey, this is the perfect end to this test run. I'm a pleaser.
Yeah, I want everybody to be happy, and then they're just mad at me.
Thanks very much, Hartmut Stockter.